Hey, in this video I want to give you tips of doing job interviews as a game developer. I am Justin, and as I recently shared in this video, I have moved to a new company this year in 2022. As I shared in the video, there are a lot of challenges of going to a new company, but one of the biggest challenges was doing the actual job interviews. So that's where this video is for. I want to share you my tips and tricks of doing job interviews, as I've been in a fortunate position to do the job interviews myself as well in my previous job experience. So I already knew the most common mistakes during the interviews. I do want to say this is all from my own experience within the game development industry here in Europe, but as I know the most companies in the games industry do their interviews quite similar, so I hope and I think this will really apply for you as well. So first, how does an interview process go within the game development industry? Well, it's actually mostly in 3 simple steps. You first have your screening step, which is your initial interview. Then after that interview, if you will pass the screening, you will get a technical assignment, and based on that you will get a technical interview about that. And then after your test assignment, if everything is done, you will get into the final steps, which is about the negotiation and the job offer. So therefore I will split this video up in 4 sections, which of the first section will be how to land your first job interview, because to get in the job interview you first have to land one. Then the second section will be about the first job interview itself. The third section will be about the technical assignment and the interview about that. And then the last section, the 4th section, will be about rejection, in which unfortunately often is also part of the process. Landing a job interview. Well, to land a job interview, the first thing that's very important is your portfolio. Within the games industry, it's important to have your portfolio optimized for the company you apply for. As an example I can give, if you apply for a company that makes a lot of mobile games, it's important that you showcase mobile games as well, or at least games that can apply to mobile game development. In this case, I will not recommend to showcase your VR games, for example, all at first. You can still showcase them, but I would really recommend them to showcase them a little bit in the middle or at the end of your portfolio, just so they can catch the interest in you in the very first few projects you showcase on your portfolio. The second is your resume. This should also be optimized for the company you apply for. Just make sure that you add job experiences, or especially like in-depth descriptions about your job experiences that also apply for the job you apply for. Just share your achievements from your previous game company, but you don't need to go in-depth detail about working at a supermarket, for example. And then the last is your social appearance. This really is a bonus thing, but for me it actually was quite a good thing to get through the first part of the process to land an interview. Your social appearance can consist of many things. You can, for example, have a Twitter account, you can have an Instagram account, a TikTok, just where you might share your passion about the job. For me, as I've been creating quite a big following on my Instagram account, this actually made me stand out of the other applicants, as this was showcasing that I'm really interested in doing programming and creating games, and that was really what they were searching for. So in this case, my social appearance had luckily for me been a bonus factor for me getting through the screening and getting to the first job interview. But take this with a grain of salt. I of course know that not everyone would like to have their social appearance shared. So if you don't like to share it, it's not a problem. But if you have, for example, an active Twitter account, don't mind sharing that, because they will always love to know if you are really passionately sharing your passion for creating games. Then the first job interview. First of all, I like to let you know that the first job interview is not an interrogation. It actually goes both ways. The other company interviews you, but it's also you interviewing them. They want to know if you're a good fit for the job, but you should also actually try to see if that company is good for you as well. So that's really important to keep in mind when you go into the first interview, that you also try to interview them actually as well to see if you really want to get to work there. Then the second thing is, don't over-prepare yourself. It's really important to really show who you are, and you should not over-prepare yourself, because that will sketch a wrong image for you. And especially if they start to ask questions you did not prepare, you might black out, which will instantly start a red flag on the interviewer. So don't over prepare yourself, don't really stress out, just let your true knowledge speak and just really show who you are, because that's what every interviewer will appreciate the most. And if you don't know some things, that will only be a plus, because you will show your honesty, and that's what most important is from every employer actually. The third point is, play the games of the companies you apply for. I myself, when I did job interviews at my previous job, I noticed this a lot. A lot of the interviewees do not play the games for the companies they apply for. I myself find this very confusing, because playing the games for the company you want to work for also lets you know what you're getting yourself into, what kind of games are you going to create, what kind of work are you going to do. That's all related to the kind of games they create. So it is really important to know what are they making, and it also shows really that you are interested in them. If you didn't really play their games, it really creates an effect of disinterest. Most interviewers will put this as a big red flag, because why do you even want to work for them? If there is another interviewee that did play their games, they have most likely get a bigger chance to get through the screening, because they are really interested to get to the job and they already like what they create. And especially if you share some feedback or things you would like to see different, those are all big pluses to give through a job interview for creating games. And my last point for the first job interview is prepare questions yourself. As I said in the beginning, you are interviewing them, and so it's really important to prepare some questions yourself as well. You can think of questions like how big is the team you might gonna work for, how often do they have gatherings, but also things like how do they invest in new learnings or gaining new knowledge. Do they like to attend to conferences? Are employees also allowed to go to conferences? Those are really interesting topics that can really sketch a good picture of the company you apply for, but also for you to see if this is the right fit for you. Now let's say you have gone through the first interview and you've gone through the screening and you both are happy with the first interview and you get your test assignment. What to do next? First, make sure you read the requirements thoroughly. I unfortunately made a mistake in the requirements. It was actually a pretty big mistake. It was a bit of the time estimation. I thought I had way more time than they actually allowed me to work on the project, which kind of made the life of the interviewer harder for the tech interviewer. But also it was a bit more questionable if I already made this mistake here, would I make that mistake as well in the job. So what I would really like to give here as a tip is, if you have any small doubt, always ask the question. I of course had a doubt, but I also had my reasonings for it, but I decided not to ask it, even though I was sure that I was doubting about the time estimation I had for creating the test assignment. But it's really important to just ask the question. That also shows again your interest. You really want to get this test assignment done correctly. So if you just don't hesitate and ask that question, that only shows a good plus on you, so you make sure you clarify everything. Second is to log your work, and especially log your decisions. And not everything you create for a test assignment can put in code. Often a test assignment is a small assignment to just test some quick coding skills from you. So it's really important to log the decisions you have in mind. Maybe there is something you want to create, but you know you cannot create in the time estimation. Just write it down what you want to create and what direction you want to go on, and just write down why you make the decision to go to this specific direction because of the time estimation, for example. This is often even more important than the code itself, because in the log you can really showcase what your long-run programming process is and what your thought process is and how you really handle these situations. The third is create something debatable. Something that's really important is that you need to know that you get a technical interview after this. So within the technical interview, you need to have something to talk about your test assignment. So creating something debatable is really important in here. Something you can think of is using a specific design pattern you are maybe a big fan of, or some method or algorithm, for example, you think will be a great fit for the specific test assignment you get. This is a great thing for yourself, so you can be more comfortable within the interview after, because you stand behind the decision you made, but also for them, the interviewer, so they can really know, like, okay, what can we ask some difficult questions about and what can kind of test this interviewee on. It's a really important topic to really get the interview started after you deliver the assignment. Then as the fourth, I also really like to recommend, and this is just a recommendation because it's not always on the test assignment itself, but it's just to create a little bit extra. You don't need to create a little extra in the project per se. It can also be in the work log. But by creating just a little extra, just for example some effects or some animations, or create just a small little feature extra, really showcases your interest and also proves that you really like to go the extra mile for this company. So just doing a little extra, for example, just 30 minutes of extra work within your test assignment really shows off your interest in the company. And the last for the test assignment, I like to say, is have fun. Often a test assignment represents your work, which you're going to do if you get the job. Try to have as much fun as you can have with this test assignment, as it's also a great test for you if you would really like the job you would get after this, because this will probably be something that will be very relatable to the things you will do when you land your job. And when you delivered your test assignment, you will get your job interview. What will you do then? Well, the first thing I really recommend is to, just before the job interview starts, just go through your test assignment 1 or 2 times. Just go through every decision you made, especially your log, just read it all through and just make sure you know everything you actually sent to them. It's really important to have yourself fully freshed up for this, so you can kind of mentally prepare yourself for every question, which also leads me to the second and actually the last thing for the actual interview, the technical interview, is again, don't over prepare yourself. Just let your true knowledge speak, especially if you also come from another company. You already have a lot of experience. Let that experience speak, because that's what's most valuable, especially for an interviewer. They want to see what you know and who you are and what your work process is. So just be confident about the test assignment you created and just showcase the stuff you make. And also something that's really relatable to that is to not be afraid to say that you don't know something. If they ask you questions you are unsure about or you just basically don't know, just say it. There's nothing wrong with it. Honesty is the best key in this, because no one knows everything. The interviewer also of course knows this, so it's only a big plus if you just show your honesty to the interviewer. Then of course the last topic, which is about rejection. Unfortunately, rejection is part of the process. But what I want you to really know is that it's almost never your fault. Often there are multiple reasons why you are rejected, so it's also really important to ask for feedback on your rejection. Often most companies should give their feedback as well within your rejection, but if they didn't, don't hesitate to reply back to them to ask for feedback, because it's also really important for you to take in account for your next interview. But I also want to let you know is that you are often not the only applicant on an application, so there are multiple people that will get rejected. So it's unfortunately just part of what does the company choose, and seemingly you are not the right fit for that moment. So just try to accept it. Just see it as it's not the right time for you to get into that company, and probably they also don't deserve you then, because if they don't think you are the best fit, then probably another company will. So it's just for you to keep your motivation up to find a new company. Also, one thing that's really important to know, that often companies do post open positions, even though they don't really need them yet. So this is unfortunately something that happens a lot, but you need to keep this in account in your acceptance phase. Like maybe a job is already filled in or is filled in internally and you are becoming obsolete even though you were already in the process. So it's really important to know like it's not your fault. There are also always multiple facets on this. So the best you can do is just ask for feedback and just take that in consideration for your next job interviews. So this is it. This is my experience and my tips and tricks for doing job interviews as a game developer. I hope you found this valuable. If you did, please consider giving me a like, subscribe, and put up the bell notification to get notified for the next video. With 2023 in the horizon, I really hope to get started in the next year with some new tutorials for you. I really got some cool things planned, but I really need to use the time to go through it thoroughly and go through it carefully. I also really want to batch them up a little bit because from my previous experience, I already knew like doing a series can be quite intense. So I really want to have it all consistently uploaded. So once it's ready, you will see that. For updates on that, always feel free to follow me on my Instagram. And if you have any questions or concerns, always feel free to ask me also on my Instagram or just ask them in the comments below. Thank you as always for listening and hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.